Dear seeker, there comes a moment in almost every sincere life when the heart grows tired of easy answers. You look around and notice something unsettling. Kind people suffer quietly. Honest people face loss. And those who wish no harm still meet pain. And in that quiet space, a question arises, not from anger, but from confusion. Why do bad things happen to good people? This is not a modern question. It is not a weak question. It is one of the most ancient human questions ever asked. In the time of Gautama Buddha, seekers came to him carrying the same confusion you may feel now. They had lived moral lives, practiced discipline, helped others, yet suffering still followed them like a shadow. The Buddha did not dismiss their pain. He did not tell them to have faith and move on. And he did not offer comfort by inventing a cosmic judge who rewards and punishes on demand. Instead, he offered something far more enduring, understanding. In teachings preserved in texts such as the Dhammapda and the Vajjhima Nikaya, the Buddha gently guided seekers to see life as it truly is, not as we wish it to be. He showed that suffering is not a sign of moral failure. That pain is not proof of unworthiness. And that goodness is not a contract with the universe. This teaching can feel unsettling at first. But for those who listen deeply, it becomes liberating. Because once suffering is no longer taken personally, it can finally be understood. And when suffering is understood, the path to freedom quietly begins. Let us now walk that path together, step by step, with patience, honesty, and compassion. The Buddha did not divide people into good and bad. Dear seeker, before we explore why suffering appears, the Buddha gently invites us to examine how we judge life itself. Most of us grow up with an unspoken belief. If I am good, life should be good to me. So when pain arrives, illness, betrayal, loss, we feel not only hurt, but confused. Why me? I tried to live rightly. The Gautama Buddha approached this confusion with radical clarity. He did not divide humanity into good people who are spared and bad people who are punished. Instead, he observed life directly and taught that existence unfolds through causes and conditions, not moral labels. In the Dhammapda, suffering, dukkha, is described as a shared condition of all conditioned life. Aging happens whether one is kind or cruel. Illness does not ask about virtue. Loss does not check character. These experiences arise because the body is fragile, relationships are impermanent, and the world is constantly changing. This teaching can feel uncomfortable. We want goodness to function like protection. But the Buddha was honest enough to say, goodness is not armor. It is a way of walking through a vulnerable world with clarity and compassion. In discourses found in the Vajjhima Nikaya, the Buddha avoids comforting illusions. He does not promise fairness, he promises understanding. And understanding, he teaches, is more reliable than hope built on conditions we cannot control. Here lies the quiet liberation of this insight. When suffering arises, it no longer means you have failed. It no longer means you are being punished. It simply means you are encountering life as it truly is. And seeing life clearly, without resentment or self-blame, is the first step toward freedom. Karma is not instant justice. When suffering touches a sincere heart, one thought often follows quietly behind it. What did I do to deserve this? This question assumes that karma works like an immediate reward and punishment system, a kind of cosmic judge who delivers verdicts on time. But the Gautama Buddha taught something far more nuanced and far more compassionate. In the Buddha's teaching, karma, kamma, does not mean fate, destiny, or instant justice. Karma simply means intentional action, and the complex web of consequences that follow from it. In the Vajjhima Nikaya, the Buddha explains that karma unfolds according to conditions, not according to our expectations. Some actions bear fruit quickly, others take years. Some ripen only when the right circumstances arise. And many results are shaped by multiple causes at once, not a single action. This is why a kind person may suffer today, and a harmful person may seem to prosper for a time. The Buddha was clear. This does not mean karma has failed. It means karma is not simple. Our present experience may be influenced by past actions we no longer remember, physical and biological causes, social and collective conditions, actions of other people. To reduce suffering to, you deserved it, is something the Buddha explicitly warned against. In the Anguttara Nikaya, he teaches that speculating about exact karmic causes can lead to confusion and cruelty rather than wisdom. Here is the gentle relief in this teaching, dear seeker. Your pain is not proof of guilt. Your suffering is not a moral failure. Karma is not a weapon. It is a process, impersonal, gradual, and deeply intertwined with the world. The Buddha's invitation is not to obsess over past causes, but to focus on the present moment. Because what you do now still matters. Right intention today plants the seeds of freedom tomorrow. And this understanding loosens the heavy burden of self-blame, allowing wisdom to grow where judgment once lived. Other people's actions still affect us. One of the most difficult truths to accept is this. You can live with kindness and still be hurt by others. Many people quietly believe that if they are patient, harmless, and sincere, the world will respond in the same way. When it does not, confusion arises. Why would this happen to me when I meant no harm? The Gautama Buddha never denied this pain. In fact, he spoke directly to it. In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha explains that existence is interconnected. We do not live in isolation. Our lives constantly intersect with the intentions, fears, and ignorance of others. Even when our own actions are rooted in goodwill, we may still encounter the consequences of actions that are not. Others may act from greed, anger, confusion, fear, and their actions can reach us in ways we never invited. The Buddha did not call this injustice. He called it conditionality, the truth that events arise when causes meet, not when fairness is satisfied. This teaching protects the heart from bitterness. It reminds us that harm does not always require personal fault. Sometimes suffering arises simply because we share space in a fragile world with minds that are not yet awake. Importantly, the Buddha never taught passivity. Understanding interconnection does not mean accepting abuse or injustice silently. It means responding without hatred, and protecting oneself without cruelty. Here lies the wisdom. You are responsible for your intentions, not for the awakening of others. When you stop measuring your worth by how others treat you, something shifts. You reclaim inner dignity. The Buddha taught that while we cannot control the actions of others, we can choose how deeply they wound our mind. And in that choice, to meet harm with clarity rather than hatred. The path of liberation quietly continues. Impermanence means nothing stays safe forever. Dear seeker, if there is one truth the Gautama Buddha returned to again and again, it is this. Everything that arises will change. This teaching is known as anicca, impermanence, and it lies at the heart of why suffering touches even the most virtuous lives. We often believe, quietly and sincerely, that when life finally becomes good, when love is steady, health is strong, and intentions are pure, things should remain that way. But the Buddha observed carefully and saw that nothing in conditioned existence can stay fixed. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha reminds his disciples that bodies age, relationships shift, and circumstances dissolve, not because something went wrong, but because change is their nature. Good people suffer not because they are flawed, but because they care. They form bonds. They build meaning. And wherever there is attachment, impermanence has something to take away. This insight is painful at first. We want safety. We want guarantees. But the Buddha did not teach impermanence to make us hopeless. He taught it to make us free. When you deeply understand impermanence, you stop demanding permanence from fragile things. You stop blaming yourself when change arrives. You begin to love without clinging. In the Dhammapda, it is said that seeing change clearly loosens the grip of suffering. Not by removing loss, but by removing the illusion that loss should not occur. Impermanence does not mean life is meaningless. It means life is precious. The Buddha taught that wisdom is not found in trying to make life secure, but in learning to meet change without fear. When nothing is promised to last, every moment becomes more honest, and the heart, less afraid of losing what it never owned. This understanding softens suffering into insight, and turns fragility into a quiet strength. Suffering is a teacher, not a curse. Dear seeker, when pain enters our life, our first instinct is to push it away. We label it as a mistake, a curse, or something that should never have happened. Yet the Gautama Buddha looked directly at suffering and discovered something revolutionary. Suffering can teach. This insight forms the foundation of the Buddha's first teaching, the Four Noble Truths, preserved throughout the Samyutta Nikaya. The Buddha did not deny suffering, nor did he glorify it. He simply acknowledged it as a fact of life and asked a profound question: what happens when we understand it fully? Suffering reveals where we cling, where we resist change, and where the ego still demands control. Without difficulty, these patterns remain hidden. It is often only when life breaks our expectations that we truly see the habits of the mind. The Buddha observed that suffering hardens the heart only when it is misunderstood. When met with awareness, it does the opposite. It humbles pride, deepens compassion, and awakens empathy for the pain of others. Many of the Buddha's closest disciples reached clarity not during comfort, but during loss, illness, or deep inner struggle. Their pain did not destroy them, it refined them. This does not mean suffering is good or desirable. The Buddha never taught that pain should be sought. He taught that resistance to pain multiplies suffering, while understanding transforms it. Like a lotus rising from muddy water, wisdom often grows from the very conditions we wish away. Dear seeker, your suffering is not evidence of failure. It is information. If you listen gently rather than fight fiercely, suffering begins to loosen its grip. It becomes less of an enemy and more of a guide, pointing you toward freedom, clarity, and a deeper kindness toward all who suffer. In this way, pain does not have the final word. Understanding does. The Buddha's promise: freedom, not fairness. Dear seeker, perhaps the most honest, and most misunderstood, aspect of the Buddha's teaching is this. The Buddha never promised a fair world. He did not say that life would reward virtue on schedule, or that pain would always make sense, or that goodness would shield us from loss. What the Gautama Buddha promised was something deeper and more reliable: freedom of the mind. In the teachings preserved across the Dhammapda and the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha consistently shifts the focus away from controlling the world and toward understanding the mind that experiences it. Fairness depends on countless conditions we cannot command. Freedom depends on insight we can cultivate. This is why the Buddha taught the Noble Eightfold Path, not as a way to fix life, but as a way to end unnecessary suffering. Right view, right intention, right action, and right mindfulness do not stop pain from arising, but they stop pain from turning into bitterness, hatred, and despair. When a good person expects fairness, suffering feels like betrayal. When a wise person seeks freedom, suffering becomes workable. The Buddha taught that liberation does not come from changing events, but from changing our relationship to events. When the mind no longer clings to how things should be, it becomes unshaken by how things are. This does not make one cold or detached. On the contrary, it gives rise to profound compassion, because one sees that all beings are struggling within conditions they did not choose. Dear seeker, this is the Buddha's quiet gift. Not a promise that life will be gentle, but a path that teaches the heart how to remain free even when life is not. And in that freedom, suffering loses its power to define you. Dear seeker, if you have listened carefully to this journey, you may notice something subtle has shifted. The question may no longer feel as sharp as it once did. At the beginning, we asked, why do bad things happen to good people? But through the wisdom of the Gautama Buddha, we arrive at a quieter, deeper understanding. Suffering is not a verdict on your goodness. And life is not keeping score. The Buddha never asked us to deny pain, pretend strength, or force optimism. He asked us to see clearly. To see that suffering arises from impermanence, from conditions, from interconnection, and from misunderstanding, not from personal failure. In the Dhammapda, the Buddha reminds us that wisdom steadies the mind even when circumstances remain unsteady. This is the heart of his teaching, not escape from life, but freedom within life. If you are kind and still hurting, nothing has gone wrong. If you are sincere and still struggling, you are not broken. You are simply human, walking an honest path in an impermanent world. The Buddha's path does not ask you to become indifferent. It asks you to become awake, awake to change, awake to suffering, awake to compassion for yourself and others. And slowly, as understanding deepens, something remarkable happens. Suffering still arises, but it no longer owns you. Pain still visits, but it does not define you. What remains is a heart that is softer, clearer, and less afraid. Dear seeker, may you stop blaming yourself for what is universal. May you stop demanding fairness from a world built on conditions. And may you discover, step by step, the quiet freedom the Buddha pointed toward. If this reflection brought clarity, sit with it. Return to it gently. The path does not rush you. Seedling, you are not here to be rewarded or punished. You are here to understand and to awaken.